Okay. Hi, Vice Chancellor. Thanks for your time today. So maybe first of all, you would like to just introduce yourself briefly to our audience.
So my name's Ian O'Connor. I'm the Vice Chancellor and President of Griffith University.
So can you tell us a bit more about the Griffith University?
So it's great to have you here, and I'm delighted to share with you some information about Griffith University. Griffith University is, whilst a relatively young university, having admitted its first students in 1975, is actually a large, comprehensive and highly ranked institution. We have nearly 50,000 students and nearly 200,000 alumni. Our students study across 5 campuses, with major campuses in Brisbane and our largest campus on the Gold Coast. We're really well known for a range of things. We were set up to be a university, to be a different type of university. We're set up to be a university which its foundation programs address the key issues of the 21st century. So we had Australia's first program in environmental science. We had Australia's first degree in modern Asian studies, because the founders of this university recognised that the 21st century was going to be Asia's century. But first let me say there's a whole series of international rankings, as you know. Yeah. And one of the things that we're proudest about Griffith is that it actually ranks in the top 3% of universities in the world across all of those rankings. With the QS rankings, we rank number 336, and 9 of our disciplines are in the top 100, including, for example, nursing, which ranked as number 29 in the world. I'd also say that there's recently been a Times ranking which looked at the performance of universities in the Olympic Games, and Griffith actually ranked number 9 in the world in terms of number of students winning gold medals in the Olympic Games in Rio. So that's a ranking we also particularly like. Essentially the areas that we have great strength in are areas clearly environment and environmental science. We have great strengths in drug discovery. 2 weeks ago a joint venture was announced between a Griffith University group of scientists working in the area of Streptococcus A and a Chinese company to take a drug to phase 1 trials. We also have really very substantial strengths in the new materials area. A number of colleagues, indeed a number of Chinese colleagues, have got some partnerships with the Chinese Academy of Science in that area.
Yeah, and you just mentioned that you're the first university in Australia offer environmental science and Asian research. So just give us a bit more detail on how is this subject going and what implication it has now.
But one of the really interesting developments at Griffith over the last decade has not been just a focus on Asia or a focus on China as an area of study, but in fact every area of this university has deep partnerships and deep collaborations with institutions in China. So we have an extraordinary range of folks in our engineering and in our environmental sciences department and in our health groups who are actually working with Chinese teams. So in one sense that origin is absolutely key to who we are, and we've been able to broaden that from simply the engagement with China as a language to teach and an object of study to saying it's actually one of our key partners in our collaborations. In fact, the biggest overseas institution that our research is published with is actually the University of is CAS, the Chinese Academy of Science. So Griffith has the largest number of co-publications with CAS in the country. And obviously that spreads across a whole range of areas, basically. In terms of the development in environmental science, it's had it's developed in a number of ways. And there's 2 or 3 key ones that I'd say. The first of those is people agree that water is going to be one of the big issues of the 21st century. The quality of water, the volume of water, the capacity to support nations. So water quality in that context is a major issue. So our Australian Rivers Institute, which is a research institute which carries out an environment studies area, is a group of really significant, in fact the largest number of water-based researchers in a university in Australia working on those core issues in relation to water. The second area for which we are very well known and we have very large programs of research and activity about is in climate change adaptation. But regardless of what we do now in terms of mitigation, in terms of stopping the increase in temperature, there's probably about 2 degrees of temperature rise built in. And so we have a very strong team of researchers across a whole range of law and planning and the basic scientists, which is saying, and health for example, how are we as a society and how are governments and how are companies going to adapt to the implications of this 2-degree range. And why we were chosen to lead that research facility is that Griffith is very interdisciplinary. So what we know is that the solutions to the big problems are going to come from working across disciplines. You are going to need to have the scientists and the social scientists, the physicists and the chemists working together. So that's a major area of them. And then the third area that we're obviously working in is in some of the new energy and energy storage. We've got some particular work going on at present. And the building just across from where we're sitting, the Sir Samuel Griffith Centre, is a proof of concept of a solar hydrogen facility. So it's a fully functioning off-grid teaching and research facility which has embedded in it a particular form of hydrogen storage which has been developed at the university. And that building, when it's fully functioning, should be able to power itself for up to 10 days without any sunlight at all. So they have been some of the major developments in those areas.
And also, I know that Griffith University and China University of Technology and Mining together established the Tourism Confucius Institute in 2011. Maybe you can tell us why it was established at the first place, and also what's the impact now to maybe the university, local tourism, and tourism cooperation with China?
One of the areas of strength that Griffith has is in tourism. We're maybe 2 or 3 in the world in terms of tourism publications, research publications. Our largest campus is on the Gold Coast, and of course Gold Coast is really the big tourist destination. It's very beautiful, and a very beautiful place to have a university campus, but it's also a very big tourist destination. And so we have a very strong base in tourism. We were very interested, and because of our deep and long links with China, we were obviously very interested in establishing a Confucius Institute. Over the last 5 to 7 years, you've seen a very major growth in Chinese tourism to Australia. You've seen this very deep development in China's own tourist infrastructure. And so it became the perfect opportunity for us to engage with CUM2, who are a very forward-thinking university, very keen to partner with us in the Confucius Institute, and have been a great partner. It became an opportunity for us to develop a Confucius Institute which spoke to the whole population. We were very keen that our Confucius Institute would be known and would have some significant local relevance. One of the great things that the Confucius Institute has done is it's actually brought a whole lot of the general population of the tourism business, actually property developers, to the tourism industry, onto the campus to engage and into the TCI, to learn Chinese, to learn more about Chinese society and culture. So we think it's had a very significant impact. But in fact, later in the year there'll be this wonderful announcement about an online Confucius classroom so being established, which will actually be able to provide to people living in rural and remote parts of Queensland access to a Confucius classroom.
That would be very useful for people who, and someone who want to learn Chinese,
Absolutely.
I guess. Yes.
Absolutely.
And so what other programs now you have cooperation with China, like research or?
Sure. Well, we've got a whole range of, so we have a significant number of research programs with the Chinese Academy of Science and their associate institutes. We have joint PhD programs with the University of the Chinese Academy of Science. We have some wonderful programs with individual universities throughout China, particularly in some of the regional areas. And we have this absolute focus on saying, I suppose the other part of it that we're liking is the opportunity for our Aussie students or our domestic students to go and spend time and to study in China. So we're also promoting China as a source of, as a place for Australian students to spend time and to study and to learn about the culture.
So you have some co-research project ongoing with China?
Yeah, we've got a number of great research projects happening in China. So I mentioned earlier that we've just signed a joint agreement with Olimvax, which is a vaccine development company in China, which is working to basically take out the research work that we've done in relation to Strep A, a terrible disease, kills 500,000 people a year, so we're doing work on that in a phase 1 trial in that area. We have a really interesting set of work happening. On this campus, we have this research institute called the Escitas Institute, which focuses on the bioactive components of natural products. Now, of course, the Chinese have been using natural products in medicines for a very long time. And so there's some joint projects between in Shanghai with SIM in relation to drug development in that context. We have some really interesting work happening in energy, some joint laboratories in energy, which is actually a new material, so that's also going on at this stage. And then we've had this long-term collaboration with a number of provincial and national authority of the Chinese Centre for Disease Control. And so a whole range of work happening in relation to that, primarily in the public health space.
And you just mentioned some Aussie students going to China to study. Just wondering how many international students you have here in the university and how many Chinese students?
Okay, so Griffith University has about at any one point in time, about 9,000 international students studying with us. We have about 2,000 Chinese students. So we have students from 130 countries with us at any one point in time. Because we are very committed to the notion of an internationalised classroom. We think it's important if a student comes to study with us that they don't just sit in a classroom of Aussie students or in a classroom of Chinese students, but that you have in the same room students from all around the world, and that's been a great success for us.
Yeah. So what subjects they are very interested in?
Oh, well, they're interested in a lot of subjects actually. It's interesting. I mean, one of the great things, you would know this, Chinese students are often very passionate students, so we have Chinese students, not surprisingly, studying business, but we have significant numbers of Chinese students in our art and design and music programs. We have significant numbers in our IT programs, in our health programs, and in our research programs. We have a couple of hundred PhD students from China studying here with us, and they are really across the whole range of disciplines. So, China's one of that group of students which actually does do study in a whole range of different areas, basically. We think that people who come and study or study internationally make a great contribution to our institution, but they get the most benefit out of that education if they are deeply engaged both in your own university community and in the surrounding community. So we have a lot of focus on improving people's English from when they first arrive, because we think one of the bases for success in study in Australia is having strong English performance. But also the strong English performance is very important so that they can actually engage with students in a whole range of broader community activities. So we focus on providing a whole range of co-curricular activity, so opportunities for students to participate in other events which aren't directly related to their study, but that gives them exposure to Australian society and culture. Remember a program last year where we had students from China and a range of other countries off learning how to be referees in Australian rules, which is a particular type of football which is played in Australia and nowhere else. We engage the students in a whole range of environmental programs. So this is a beautiful campus, and the Gold Coast is a beautiful location. People have a great passion and love for the environment, so we engage them in activities in relation to that. And of course there's a whole range of social activities. But our focus on, and sport of course, but our focus on those activities is to provide opportunities for students to have the real experience of living in Australia and the real experience of meeting Australian students and working and playing with Australian students and students from other parts in the world, because we think the relationships that you build at this stage of life are really important as you go through your career.
And finally, I just want to know your future strategy for the university, both probably short-term and long-term.
Sure. Well, our future strategy for the university is we are absolutely focused on quality. So our view is that one of the key things that a university can do for its students and for its alumni is to increase the quality of the institution. And we do that in a couple of ways. We do that obviously on focusing on our rankings and undertaking activities which improve our rankings. We do it we have an absolute focus on innovation and teaching and learning, and we also focus very much on saying, how is it that what we do here can make a contribution to the broader community? So we're constantly thinking about what it is that we do that can change the lives of people outside of the university, both in the Australian context and internationally. And in that context we will build reputation. We're also focused in the short term In 2018 there is a major sporting event, what's called the Commonwealth Games, but it'll be the largest sporting event in Australia for the next decade. And the village for that is co-located with our campus on the Gold Coast. And so we're absolutely focused on providing opportunities for our domestic and international students to be exposed and engage with a major international event. Over the long term, we are looking at how we build our disciplines and what our disciplines should look like as the world changes.
Thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Okay.